Mr Chairman, can I first of all briefly take the opportunity to acknowledge you and your role in this Parliament as you head into the last few hours of your time, and say how your fairness and guidance and gentle sense of humour has been greatly appreciated by this House, and as has your sense of dress. Your pink shirts shows leadership as a Southern man, and I want to particularly acknowledge that. I agree with the Minister who's just resumed his seat that this is a very good note as Parliament moves towards the end of this 50th session of Parliament. It's not the last bill. There's another one on the order paper after this, but it's a good note to nearly end this session of Parliament. Can I acknowledge the Ministers, I think four actually, who have progressed this legislation. We had Honourable Chris Carter, Honourable Steve Chadwick, the Honourable Kate Wilkinson and the Honourable Nick Smith, who's now seeing it into the final stages as it concludes on the third reading. I also want to add my acknowledgement of Colin King, who has, as the local Member of Parliament prior to being dumped by the National Party, strongly supported this legislation, and I think it's a good thing that the Minister urged other parties in the Parliament to support its progress so that Colin King could be the Member of Parliament before the third and final reading of this legislation, and I was very happy to support that initiative by the MP. I want to acknowledge the Coastal Marine Guardians who for 7 years have worked, following a request from the Minister of Conservation of the time, have worked to make this perhaps unthinkable agreement a reality. The Minister is right that these areas of proposed protections are often the cause of huge division in the community, and in this instance, through a lot of goodwill, a lot of common sense and a lot of hard work, the agreement has been reached, and we're now able to progress a large area of marine protection, not perhaps what best practice would dictate if it was done from central direction rather than from locally driven agreement, but it is a huge step forward, and the fact that it has got the agreement of all parties means that it's more likely to be enduring. The fact that the Minister supported through his SOP a change to the length of time for the review from 25 years to 10 years, I think was a good thing, and I assume that the Guardians are supportive of that as well. I think the general provision of review of marine protection is good as long as it isn't one that then opens up that division again. So the Minister nodded as I gently requested confirmation that the Guardians are in agreement to that review, so I think that's a very good step and we'll be supporting it. I also want to acknowledge the Local Government and Environment Select Committee. We have held hearings on this legislation in Kaikoura. I think it was great that we went to the local area. We obviously were surrounded by the beauty of that part of New Zealand, but we were also very much aware of the passion and the energy and the commitment that the local people who made submissions on this bill have for their coastline. The pride, the understanding, the knowledge and the commitment they had made to put aside many differences and work collaboratively together was very obvious during our day of hearing. So I want to acknowledge the Select Committee for the respectful way that we heard the submissions and the contribution made by the submitters. I also want to acknowledge the officials. They worked hard. I think they enjoyed it. We're probably one of the most satisfying committees to work with because we put quite a lot of energy into the consideration, but the officials were very responsive to our requests, some of which they might have felt a little bit obscure. For example, Mr Chairman, we were very puzzled by the differences, and I know this is one that exercised the mind of my colleague Moana Maki. We were puzzled by the differences in the measurement that's undertaken by different departments, and whether the measurements go to 2 or 3 or 1 decimal point, and what a difference that makes in the actual measurement of the coverage of the marine protected area. So I want to acknowledge and thank the officials for their work. So this bill establishes marine reserves of different types within the Kaikoura coast. The whale sanctuary that the Minister referred to in his contribution Mr Chairman.
Honourable Ruth Tyson.
It establishes the New Zealand Fur Seal Sanctuary, and as the Minister alluded, to think of times when fur seals were part of the sort of produce of New Zealand, to a time now when we enjoy so much being able to see the pups and their transition to adult life, to be able to drive down the coast and see the fur seals at close hand, not too close though because they're not pets, is a very fortunate thing for us, and many countries are very jealous of our ability to show off our animals in that way. We have different types of marine protection. We have sanctuaries as we know it, but we also have the Taipuri and the Mataitai. The bill establishes an advisory committee, and I think that's a good model to hold, and I look forward to seeing how that, as the model for marine protection, develops, and whether there's some opportunities for other areas to take advantage from that, and obviously fisheries regulations that are specific to this area. So, Mr Chairman, it's a pleasure for me, as the Labour Conservation spokesperson, to be able to put Labour's name alongside support of this area, to say that even though significant concerns were raised with the committee from people who know this area of science very well, that this was not in accordance with best practice, and I take those concerns seriously, that we considered that the work that was done over so many years under request from 4 Ministers of Conservation consecutively deserves the respect of the response of support from this Parliament. Had there been different instructions given to the Guardians, or had the rules changed partway through, there may have been different consideration, but it is our view that the work that the Guardians have undertaken in an area that they know best, and which offers much better protection that we currently have, and with the opportunity for a review in just a decade's time, is certainly worthy of support. I think the changes that the Select Committee made improved the original legislation, and combined with the SOP that the Minister is offering, gives us something for this whole Parliament to be proud of, something that has been worked on for many years, and something which is a great third reading to go through in this final stages of the House as we progress this committee stage and move to the third reading shortly after. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Gareth Hughes.
Kia ora, Mr Chair. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou kia ora. It's fantastic that in the last hours of this Parliament we're seeing marine reserve and marine protection laws passing through our Parliament.